Hey, what's up, everybody? So me and James just talked about my fight with Zulu. It was a real big fight for me because Zulu is the guy that I watched in a video when I was being coerced into trying to try out Gracie Jiu Jitsu. So it's a real interesting story. Why I got mad after the fight. We talk about it in the episode. Check it out.
What's up, everybody, and welcome back to the Yamatodamashii podcast. Guys, if you're new to the podcast and you haven't seen some of our previous episodes, one of the things that we like to do is really break down Enson's career. So if you go back, we've literally started from his first fight and we've sort of gone through each of the fights and we're sort of building up to, bigger stages like the UFC, like the Pride fights. They're all coming. But as we do, we really look to the journey of how Enson got to those stages. So it's kind of topical that I sort of touched on the UFC because the fight we're going to talk about today, right, was kind of a bit of a tune-up fight for that fight at UFC 13. And well, let's get straight into it. I mean, like, as the last one we did of these was your big win over Mushtaq Abdullah, and you had a big victory there, big TKO win. But one of the things I noticed was there was a bit more of a time gap between the Mushtaq fight and the and this fight with Rei Zulu. Was there a particular reason? Because you did so many fights so quickly in a quick turnaround. I was just wondering if there was a bit of a reason for the gap. Was it an injury or?
No, I wanted more time to put on more muscle. Like if you watch the fights in this fight, I have a little bit more muscle on.
Yeah, you can tell.
So I wanted to concentrate more on weights. And for me, doing weights and cardio isn't the same thing. So I would stop cardio, doing weights, get a little fat, get more muscle, and then cut it up. So
Right.
I needed that little time to not have to worry about my cardio.
Mm-hmm. And was that because back then the weight classes were, there was such big, if there was weight classes, it was such a big size discrepancy anyway. Did you feel that it was just an advantage, with so much open weight stuff that you felt, you had to be as big as you could in that sense?
Yeah, well, the Joe Estes fight actually taught me that I
Mm-hmm.
needed to be a little heavier because Joe Estes wasn't. He didn't. I had more technique than Joe Estes. The only thing he had over me was power and size.
Mm-hmm.
So that power and size will compensate for a lot of technique,
Mm-hmm.
and I just didn't like that. Being as weak as I was, so I just wanted to put on more power, more muscle.
Nice.
Because I refused to go down to a light heavyweight because you know I wasn't, like I said, my whole idea of fighting wasn't for the belt, wasn't for prize money. I wanted to test myself, and I didn't want to test myself with guys that are under 205 pounds.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to test myself, period, as a man. So that's the reason why I didn't want to fight in any weight classes. I wanted to fight in the eliminated divisions, and that's why when I was overpowered by Joe Estes, instead of thinking that I go down on a weight class, I felt it's a good test for myself to stay in this weight class and just try and put on some weight and become a stronger person.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's completely different to how fighters do it these days, right? Most of them are looking to cut down, cut as much weight as possible so they can have that sort of bigger advantage at the smaller weight class. Kind of cool mentality that you're looking to be.
Yeah, it's crazy because the fighters nowadays are cutting so they can be big in their weight class.
Yeah.
I already went into the fight knowing that I was going to be way smaller than my opponent.
Mm-hmm.
Like Mark Kerr, over 50 pounds heavier than me,
Yeah. Yeah.
and full of muscle. Yeah, so I knew that, but I was, as a person, I just felt that I had to adjust my training, adjust the way I was going to fight this certain fight. If he was going to be that big, I'm going to try and keep on a little bit of extra weight for the fight to have a little bit more weight. That kind of stuff came into play. So it was so different. Yeah, I accepted that I was going to fight someone that was way bigger than me. So
Yeah.
a lot different than today.
Yeah. Okay. And so as far as Rei Zulu goes, right? is a bit of an infamous name, right? I think a lot of hardcore fans are obviously familiar with Zulu, and we'll get into that. But for the younger fans that might not know much about the history of the sport, Zulu was a bit of like a mystic figure in some senses, because if you go onto Tapology or Sherdog and try and find his record, you won't see those fights, right? Because he had so many regional fights on the Brazilian scene that we're talking in the 80s, right, where the MMA wasn't a thing. So I'm just curious, how did the fight sort of come about in terms of Sayama sort of tracking down Zulu and arranging the fight?
I don't know. I actually didn't even ask for Zulu. His name came up from somehow Sayama. But I guess being in touch with Hickson, and that's his channel into Brazil.
Right.
I don't know if it was Hickson or someone Hickson knew, but the name came up,
Mm-hmm.
and he was, at the time, he was 52 years old.
Wow.
But for me, it was you got to figure 2 years prior to that, never got in the ring. I'm sitting in the studio in the University of Hawaii watching a videotape because some jiu-jitsu guy is trying to get me to do jiu-jitsu classes. Shows me that exact fight of
Mm-hmm.
Zulu and Hickson.
Mm-hmm.
And later on, down years later, little did I even imagine that I was actually going to be fighting this guy.
Right.
52, whatever, it didn't matter to me. I was Zulu, and that was he was a part of the. In Brazil, there was these two groups that were claiming to be the best fighting, is Luta Livre and Jiu-Jitsu, and they had
Mm-hmm.
a real big rivalry. And the Luta Livre guys were the only ones that were doing, real training, close enough that could actually um, beat jiu-jitsu on the street. You have karate and aikido, but those are so limited by the rules of the sport, that in the street fight you really can't use much of it. But Luta Livre was like the big arch rival of jiu-jitsu. So Zulu was the only one that really wanted to fight Hickson.
Mm-hmm.
And so he was a real big name, real huge. Like, he was considered a street brawler, and he fought Hickson pretty good. He, like, the first fight was a long fight. The second fight, I think Hickson finally got to his back.
Mm.
But he's an infamous figure, especially to us jiu-jitsu people.
Mm.
He's that Luta Livre, the enemy of jiu-jitsu.
Yeah,
He's that big
definitely.
beast guy that challenged Hickson. So when
Yeah,
his
yeah,
name, regardless of his age, I was like, oh my God, Zulu, yeah.
yeah.
For me, he was like a mystical figure, a real beastly figure, that the only guy who fought Hickson twice.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
they were very appealing to me.
And just to touch on that real quick, because you kind of mentioned it, and we talked a little bit about it in the one of the first podcasts we did, the early days. Go back and check it out, guys, if you haven't seen it. The first time, that was the first sort of MMA kind of fight, no holds barred fight you'd ever seen before, right? In that sort of fashion.
Yeah, yeah.
What was your impressions of it?
Well, the first time I saw that fight, it was like, Zulu's way bigger than Hickson.
Mm-hmm.
So when I saw that, I was like, okay, back in our day, bigger was stronger. So the bigger guy was going to usually win the fight. So when I saw that, I was a little bit confused, thinking this is a jiu-jitsu guy promoting jiu-jitsu, and the jiu-jitsu practitioner is going to be fighting someone that's way bigger and obviously probably going to beat him. I was
Mm-hmm.
saying, I wonder why he's showing me this. And I remember watching the fight and Hickson, holding the guard and healing his back and, just keep not taking any significant strikes. And I remember thinking, man, if this little guy beats this big Zulu guy, I got to start this art.
Mm-hmm.
And Hickson somehow maneuvered to the back, choked him out, and Zulu tapped out. And right there, I was like, sold.
Yeah.
I got to try this art. Yeah.
Yeah, that was the big thing for the Gracie sort of promotional videos they put out there, right? Just showing,
Crazy jiu-jitsu in action. Yeah.
yeah, seeing the technique actually work. No, that's cool. So I mean, talk about this fight, right? Did you have the in terms of the timeline, right? Because the UFC fight takes place what, like 6 weeks later. Was that fight already sort of signed and done? Was this,
Yep.
or Wow. Okay. So this was a bit like a
The
tune-up
UFC
fight.
fight was already signed, and they wanted me. They already had enough fighters for the heavyweight tournament, so they asked me to come into the middleweight. I think they call it middleweight tournament. So it's
Mhm.
205 pounds. So I had to cut weight for that. So it was the first time I ever cut weight, but I just really wanted to find the UFC. So
Mhm.
I got that call. The contract was agreed upon. I think it was 7,500 to fight in the UFC, and it was like in the meantime, Sayama asked me to fight in Shuto, and I said, "Yeah, I'll fight, but I want to have special rules because the UFC allowed elbows, and I wanted to make sure that I could prepare myself for elbows, using it and taking it.
Mhm.
So I asked for the special rules where you could elbows were included, and Sayama said that he can make those rules for me because Zulu fought in bare-fisted elbows,
Mm.
everything goes rules. So Zulu was actually pretty keen on that, so
Yeah.
worked out.
Yeah, imagine him with that huge experience in sort of no holds barred fighting, that he was kind of more favorable to that rule set. So,
Yeah.
I mean, talk about it just from, prior to the fight, going in with the idea that actually, I've got to sort of adapt a few things to the rule set. Did that change your sort of strategy for the fight?
No, just the fact that I was going to be able to add in elbows.
Hmm.
I was excited to try and use elbows. And other than that, I wasn't a striker.
Hmm.
So my whole thing was, strike until I had to, or until I was able to get it to the ground. So my whole thing was, yeah, strike till you get it to the ground. Don't just, your idea isn't striking to try and knock them out striking.
Right. That makes sense. And then, so obviously the fight takes place. You seem noticeably maybe a bit more intense in this fight. Was there a particular reason?
Yeah. I was, when already like 4 days before my fight, it's just the worst thing for me because I want to get the fight over with. I want to fight. I want to fight. I wish it was today. I remember that. Went to the arena. You gotta wait hours in the back. Take doctor's check, rules meeting, all this shit. It's like you want to fight. You want to fight. So you finally get in the ring where it's time to fight, and all of a sudden it's like they're making some kind of appeal about my tape on my hands, and I'm like, we know we can tape. You guys can tape too. And then what really surprised me was jiu-jitsu representative John Alberto. He was the one in Zulu's corner, so I was already like pretty baffled. Like, whoa, I'm jiu-jitsu. Luta Livre is the enemy,
Yeah.
and there's a jiu-jitsu guy in Zulu's corner because he's Brazilian. Is that overcomes the loyalty of jiu-jitsu?
Hmm.
And so for me, I was already like flustered by that. Like, holy shit, why is he in the corner? And John Roberto is the one who started making the big commotion about the tape on my hands. So that pissed me off even more. I was saying,
Yeah.
so this guy now is not only cornering Zulu, he's trying to create a problem for the fight. And I'm like just want to fight. You could see if you watch the video, I'm like across the ring, like pretty much past the middle of the ring, ready to go,
Hmm.
and waiting for the ref to let me go because I was just gonna attack.
Yeah.
And I had to kept waiting. It just really frustrated me. And they complain about the tape, and finally, when we finally got to fight, the frustration was just nuts. I was just wanting to just get it on.
Hmm. Yeah. So you took it kind of as a bit of a slap in the face, right? The fact that you had been affiliated with Gracie Jiu-Jitsu for, your whole career. You were even wearing Gracie Jiu-Jitsu symbol on like your gear, right? As well.
Yeah, I have a big belief loyalty is given where it's deserved,
Hmm.
and there's not one loyalty is not a one-way street. It's a two-way street. You need to get loyalty to give loyalty. And when I saw jiu-jitsu standing there, man, I understand now. The Gracies sue each other.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like they sue each other, the other brothers, so it's not that big a thing. So
Hmm.
for me back then, I'd never sue Egan. No
Yeah.
matter what, I take the loss. There's no way you're gonna take your brother to court for
Yeah.
me. And for me, it's like I think loyalty is something that's really treasured. And to see jujitsu cornering the enemy and then making a big stink about my taping on my hands for the enemy, that just was I just had this tension built up. I was able to stay composed
Mm-hmm.
and control that emotion until the end, until after the fight.
And what was the difference you found with, fighting sort of with that personal anger compared to how you fought before, where you completely sort of composed? Was it a big noticeable difference, or?
Well, that type of anger. The only time I ever fought in with that type of anger was with Joe Estes,
Mm.
because how he demanded fight money, and then when I hit him a couple of times, he tapped out right away. There was just this rush of anger. When I saw the fight was over, there was a rush of anger saying, "Fuck, this is not enough. I got to hit him again."
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So the Zulu fight, um, we did a little bit of striking. I hit him to a point. I hit him once, so he kind of wobbled. I clinched with him, got on his back, and I started elbowing him because I wanted to use my elbows. Elbowing him, and then just from that frustration again, the ref came to pull me off,
Mm-hmm.
and out of that frustration, I didn't. I needed to do more. I
Yeah.
felt like, no, I got to give him more. So I pushed the referee off and gave him one more elbow in the head. That was part of the frustration. And then if you watch I think the video of the fight shows it. After the fight, I'm turning around and I want to go run over to John Roberto. And what I'm screaming in the ring is I'm saying, "You jiu-jitsu? Are you jiu-jitsu?"
Mm-hmm.
Stating like, "Why are you in Luta Livre's corner if you're jiu-jitsu?" So I was screaming at him, and I wasn't going to attack. He's an old man, so I wasn't going to do anything, but I was going to run to the rope side and tell him, "What the fuck? Are you jiu-jitsu? You're fucking disloyal," that kind of stuff.
Mm.
But Ethan held me back, so I kind of was on the ropes screaming at him, "Are you jiu-jitsu? Are you jiu-jitsu?" So I don't know if many people knew what was going on there and why I was so pissed off.
Yeah.
But it wasn't like I couldn't control my adrenaline. It wasn't because I got so excited I beat Zulu. I beat Zulu, and my whole energy focused on John Roberto.
Yeah. Yeah. No, you seem like that's kind of where the anger is actually sort of aimed at, right? The fact that the situation, but
Yeah, it just built up, about
mm-hmm.
him cornering Zulu, making a big stink out of it,
Mm-hmm.
and I just felt like I was backstabbed in the back.
Yeah. Was I mean, did you almost sort of take him quite lightly because you knew of his age? Like, did the fight, or did the fight surprise you? Did you think that he might have been a bit more aggressive? Because obviously he tapped quite soon, and his corner obviously threw in the towel as well. I don't know. Did that kind of surprise you a little bit?
No, not really. I just I don't think I was surprised. In the midst of the battle,
Mm.
you kill until you stop. And when the referee came in and stopped me, I felt like, okay, opponent conquered. I didn't even think, okay, Zulu or
Yeah.
52-year-old. It was just an opponent that I felt that I conquered, and then everything channeled to John Roberto.
Right. Right. Cool. Makes sense. And I guess kind of the aftermath, right? Did in terms of your feelings towards John Alberto and jiu-jitsu guys, like, did that could carry on? Like,
I never really got to talk about it. I just kind of understood that one, a little red flag in me was like, okay, is this what jiu-jitsu loyalty is about?
mm,
The second one was I never did think highly of John Roberto after that. He I think he's a big still today he's a big thing in jiu-jitsu.
mhm,
I think he's a red belt now. I actually saw him. They had a video on YouTube when Hickson was presenting his red belt, and Horian, Hoyler, Helson, all the brothers are there, and he was there also.
well,
So
yeah,
I know that he's still a very big figure there, and um, hey, he's an older guy. He's a senior jiu-jitsu guy. Uh, all respect to him in terms of jiu-jitsu, but as far as a person and loyalty, I don't care for him.
mhm,
I mean,
mhm,
if I see him in the event, it'll be like I will go out of my way to say hi. If he comes to say hi, I'll say hi back. But I would not bend over backwards for him, and I would not do anything to help him in any way.
mhm. No, it makes sense, right? I mean, it was a shock at the time, and you never really had that closure about it. So, um, Just a bit of an offshoot, a bit of trivia. Did I don't know if you remember this, but Zulu was quite famous for having quite a lot of kids. And one of his kids was Zuluzinho. And I don't know if you ever remember Zuluzinho, who's the big guy who fought
I
Fate.
think he came and fought in Pride later. Yeah.
He did, yeah, he fought in Pride, yeah. And I thought, it's crazy how things evolve and things go on. So
Yeah, and I think I was already retired,
mhm.
but I remember seeing him and how huge he was, and he wasn't really a technical fighter, but he was a big boy, strong boy,
Yeah.
and I did have that thing in me like, oh, that would have been cool to fight father and son.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Right.
Yeah, so it did pass my mind that, if I didn't retire, this would have been a pretty good fight to have. Would be pretty exciting. I can see them using the Enson, Rei Zulu footage in the
Yeah.
promos.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I think Zulinho is still kind of active. I don't think he's got the best
Oh, is
record,
he?
but maybe one for Tsuyoshi, right?
Ooh, that'd be interesting, huh? And
Yeah, yeah.
Is Zulu still healthy and
I think
still
so.
alive?
There's some YouTube footage of him knocking about, but I mean, obviously, he's living his
He's in
life in
his
Brazil.
70s, I think. Oh, yeah.
But it'd be kind of cool just to see, put a little
Yeah, that'd be
spotlight
cool.
back on.
Him cornering his son and me cornering Tsuyoshi.
Yeah, yeah. Look, MMA has got to have those little stories. Japan does that
Yeah,
really
yeah.
well, right?
That
They
would
they
be
like to
pretty
sort of
cool.
play and stuff.
Yeah, like the Francis Ngannou and Cyril Gain, the ex sparring partners.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So
No,
I
that's cool.
bombed that though. Huh? I totally
Oh, the
bombed
pick.
that.
Yeah, well, it was a tough one to predict that Francis would wrestle him. Like,
I didn't even take that into consideration.
yeah,
Tsuyoshi did a lot of sparring at Extreme Couture with Francis, yeah.
right.
So he was telling me, yeah, he thinks the best chance for Francis is to take him down and ground and pound. And I was like, he came over to watch the fight, and right before the fight, he told me, I was like,
What?
whoa, holy shit, I never thought of that.
Yeah, yeah. I know it
Shit,
threw
man.
me off as well. So
Yeah, I know. I was like, holy shit. And then the last fight too, I was so off on that too. I mean, the fight before that.
oh, Moreno and Figueroa. Yeah. Well, we both picked Moreno on that one, so we'll both take an L on
Yeah, I
that.
think that I picked that one not necessarily looking at really the type of fighter they are,
Yeah.
and the circumstances. I just love Moreno.
To be honest, they're both such good fighters. It could go any different way, any
Yeah,
different day of the week. So
yeah. So we kind of picked who we liked.
yeah, yeah, for real. Cool. Any parting words before we wrap up this episode?
No, it's good, man.
Awesome. Right. Well, anyone that's just checking us out for the first time, we hope you enjoyed. And for all our loyal viewers that keep watching, keep on watching. We've got way more to come, way more guests, way more stuff. So we'll speak to you guys again soon.